is now time for Bradford and Brooks, a civil discourse about civil affairs in Bardstown, Kentucky, and around the world. Please welcome your host for Bradford and Brooks, Margie Bradford and Jim Brooks. Now, get ready to enjoy a community forum to encourage citizen participation in the political process by the thoughtful discussion of political and civil issues.
Good morning, Bardstown and Nelson County, and welcome to another edition of Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks here with my co-host, Margie Bradford. Good morning, Margie.
Good morning, Jim.
Well, we have a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday. I see sun shining through the front windows, and mornings like this, I kind of wish we could drag these microphones out on the sidewalk,
Well, as long as I've got a scarf and a coat on. It's still cool out there, Jim. Don't get all carried away
Oh,
here.
that sunshine looks great.
Yeah, it does. I might even get my car washed today. What do you think?
We're going to make it rain. We've had enough of rain.
Oh, no. I guess I'll have to hold off then. I don't want any more rain.
Well, as Margie and I have on Bradford and Brooks, we've continued our series of interviews with candidates for state constitutional office. And, we're joined by a very special guy who's no stranger to Nelson County, who's been here a lot of times. I know because I go to the Democratic events and have had pleasure shaking his hand and hearing him speak several times. Our guest today is State Representative Rocky Adkins.
Jim, it's good to be here.
Well, thank you for taking time for the drive down, and I'm sure you're thankful this station is not in Paducah.
I am thankful you're not in Paducah. I always enjoy coming to Bardstown, Nelson County. Beautiful community. I always enjoy coming. Thanks for having me.
Well, and you are a candidate for governor.
I am.
All right, and we were talking a little bit before the show, but you've served in the House since 1987. 87.
Elected on my 26th birthday. Sure was.
You were one of the younger members then, weren't you?
One of the younger members ever elected, and it's been a tremendous experience. I've seen the legislative process from every angle you can see it from, so it's been a great education.
Rocky, where are you from?
I'm from Elliott County, Sandy Hook, a small county just east of Moorhead, just south of Ashland. I went to school at Moorhead State University after I graduated from high school at Elliott County. Got 2 degrees from Moorhead State, got my master's in secondary ed. I'm a former school teacher. Played college basketball at Moorhead State University. Played my last game. This is a special time of the year for me, the big dance. I played my last game in NCAA tournament against Syracuse in Hartford, Connecticut, 1983. Jim Boeheim was coaching then. There's nothing like the big dance, the NCAA tournament. It was a good way to go out. That was my senior year.
Well, that sounds like worthy of a radio show topic itself.
Yes.
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 But you're a candidate for governor, and I think I can say this, that among all the candidates, you bring a wealth and a depth of legislative experience, that I don't think anybody who's looking at the governor's race has.
Well, I think that's what separates me from the other candidates. I think that we need somebody, especially now, the first day they're elected to be governor, that can hit the ground running. I think I bring the experience and the proven leadership from my time in the legislature, from serving in all these different capacities, from a member to being the majority leader of the House for 13 and a half years, and now being the minority leader. I've seen it from all angles. I know how the legislative process works. Serving on the Appropriations and Revenue Committee like I did, writing the transportation budget, writing the Economic Development, Natural Resources, Tourism budget, I think it gives me a wealth of experience and knowledge that's going to be needed to get Kentucky back on the right track. I would also say that understanding how to work across party aisles is important. Democrats and Republicans bringing people together. This race is not about Democrats or Republicans. This race is about politics it's about people over politics, to be very honest with you. And people over politics is something I talk about a lot, because we need to bring people together instead of dividing people. We need to lift people up instead of trying to tear them down. I think I bring that knowledge. I think I bring that experience, and I think I bring that proven leadership that's needed more now than ever to actually hit the ground running and really being able to unite people instead of divide people.
Rocky, you mentioned earlier in our earlier discussions before we came on the air, talking about some proposed legislation that you are thinking of introducing that have to do with our community and technical colleges.
Well,
it sounds like a wonderful initiative.
Well, it is an initiative that I would push hard when I'm elected governor, and that is free community technical college. Now, the word free, don't mistake that. There will be skin in the game, but we've got 17 other states that's already done this throughout America, throughout the United States. And what it's done is an investment in the workforce of Kentucky.
Right.
And kids who are graduating from high schools that would want to get a certificate or a associate degree, whether it be in nursing or whether it be a trade that we need, of welding or auto mechanics or whatever it may be, that we would invest after Pell, after Keys. It would be the last dollar in, but we're going to expand that. And we're going to look at laid-off workers, people that may have lost their job on the assembly line or in the coal fields of eastern Kentucky. Re-education, retraining. And if we don't do this, and other states are, West Virginia signed their legislation into law yesterday, matter of fact. Tennessee already has this. It's an investment in our people to make sure we can compete in retaining the jobs we have now, but being able to compete to bring in the kind of business and industry we want here in the future, especially competing now in this global economy and making sure we take not only care of the jobs we're fighting for that we have today, but preparing our workforce for the jobs of tomorrow. And that's what this initiative would do. You'd have to maintain a certain grade point average. You'd have to be able to pass a drug test, and we'd mandate that you stay in Kentucky. And we want to create that economy
for a certain amount of time.
That's right, for a certain amount of time. That's exactly right. Most legislation is 2 years, but this would be a legislative proposal that the legislature would have to pass. I understand that from serving in the legislature, that
you
you have
just
to work
say
with
you can't make an executive order.
But you put an initiative out there that you believe is a good initiative, and if it's a good initiative, this initiative wouldn't be a Democrat or Republican initiative. This initiative would be a very bipartisan. This would be about the people, about the workforce, about the training of that workforce here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Well, it would be a pro-business approach as well as a pro-people approach.
It'd be pro-people, it'd be pro-business. We'd have industry involved in this as well. We would have our building trades, labor unions who are already doing some of this work as far as certificate work, as far as training they're doing for their workforce. So this would be a people issue. This would be an investment. This would be something that would help us be more competitive in the future as we're trying to retain the jobs we have, but trying to grow the economy and create the kind of jobs our people need and deserve in the future.
Well, Rocky, it sounds excellent. I know that a lot of the educators in our area and the school districts are looking at partnering with industry because industry needs talent. They need people who are trained, so they understand where the need is. But in addition to educating, that education also, it kind of raises all boats. It improves quality of life in the community.
No question.
It improves their health with access to health insurance, et cetera.
No question.
So an education goes way beyond just punching in and out of a 9-to-5 job.
And what I'd like to talk to about that is we fight for the jobs that we have in this community and across Kentucky to keep those jobs. We got to get ready for 21st century jobs. And what I mean by that is the auto industry here in Kentucky is already doing that. They're automating all of their lines to build the automobiles of the future. They've invested over $6 billion over the last 6 years to do just that. This industry that you have in this community, this distillery industries, the distilleries that are being built today, are the modern facilities that are being built to create more jobs and the growth of that industry. But most people don't know that this global economy in Kentucky sitting where we are in the middle of the country. We make automobiles. We're the third leading producer of automobiles in America. But our number one export industry is not coal, tobacco, it's not bourbon, or it's not cars. Our number one export industry in the Commonwealth of Kentucky is a $12.5 billion export industry called the aerospace industry. We're making the pieces and parts here in Kentucky to build planes and rockets around the world. We rank second in America of the pieces and parts that we're making, only behind Washington State that has Boeing. This industry is going to need 350 to 500,000 jobs in the next 15 to 20 years. Kentucky sits here ready because we're already doing this industry. It's a leading export for us, but we're educating that workforce too. Places like Morehead State University, which is a part of my legislative district, has the Space Science Center.
Right.
The Aviation School at Eastern Kentucky University, Space Tango in Lexington, and Speed Engineering School working on what they're doing. And just the other day, our great Kentucky Community Technical College system, which is one of the greatest things that ever happened during higher ed reform, to have state-of-the-art facilities built throughout Kentucky in different regions in Kentucky, sitting there ready to train whatever workforce that business and industry needs. They expanded their curriculum just the other day to a curriculum called the Aerospace Mechanics, which means you're going to have people being trained to work on assembly lines, to be able to do more and take advantage of this industry when it does come to Kentucky. Auto industry, aerospace industry, you know what all that's made out of? It's made out of aluminum. You know who the number one producer of aluminum in America is?
Kentucky.
Kentucky. So here we sit, and this is part of my vision of how you diversify, how you build new economies, how you create the kind of jobs our people need and deserve in an advanced industrial manufacturing sector. How do you go to a region like I'm from, Eastern Kentucky, where you've seen a downturn in the coal economy that has cost thousands of jobs directly and indirectly? Wouldn't it be neat to see us take advantage of the last 25 years of investment we've made in infrastructure, of better roads and bridges, water and sewer, regional industrial parks? We've got regional now airports, we've got river ports, we've done all of that. My vision of a world-class broadband system is needed in Kentucky as well to allow people to be able to communicate. But here we sit throughout Kentucky with an opportunity to lift up all parts of Kentucky. And when all parts of Kentucky are doing well, all of Kentucky does well. So my vision would be for that industry to expand in Kentucky, because we're sitting in the middle of the country, we're training that workforce, we're making those pieces and parts now, and go to regions of the state that need the help the most, but keep the economic engines of this state running well as well. That's my vision of how we would put people back to work, laid off coal miners, steel workers, an assembly line worker, a railroad worker, and finally have that hope and opportunity to really build that strong economy with the kind of jobs we need and deserve in a field, in an area that people never thought, the aerospace industry. I think that's exciting for Kentucky, and that's the jobs of tomorrow that we got to take advantage of here in Kentucky, and that's the reason this workforce training is so important for the jobs of today, but get us prepared for the jobs of tomorrow as well. That's the vision I bring when I'm the next governor of Kentucky.
Well, I can personally speak for the Space Science Center. That's an amazing place. They do some amazing work. And what's more important to me, my son has visited there when he was in high school here, but watching those students engage and seeing the fire lit, that there's something else
It's amazing.
out there.
It's amazing.
And
This is Morehead?
Yes,
Yes.
Red
Okay.
State. And really what's amazing about it is when I speak about the aerospace industry and the opportunity for Kentucky, it doesn't matter what crowd you're speaking in, it gets real quiet because people really don't understand what we're already doing in that field.
No.
I'm happy to tell you today that 12 years ago, I appropriated the money to build the Space Science Center at Morehead State University. I'm not bragging about that. Folks that were at that university at the time had the vision of where this industry could go and what it meant. We're graduating students now with aerospace engineering degrees. It's an international program. When I toured it one day, I went in one of the clean rooms. 3 students were there, one from the Ukraine, one from Vietnam, and one from a little county in eastern Kentucky, Menifee County. They were working on a satellite that they've invented there that's basically goes on to NASA or to the SpaceX to go to the International Space Station for different types of research and development. We have a place there that basically is called the Exomedicine Technology Division of the aerospace, where we're taking cancer cells and we're taking chemotherapy medicines and we're sending that in that satellite to the International Space Station. They take it on a place at the International Space Station called the Exomedicine Lab, and they're seeing how cancer cells react to cancer medicines at zero gravity to see what kind of research and development we can do there. Folks, that's going on in Kentucky, and I think that's pretty daggone exciting, to be honest. But not only from that specialty, but to imagine assembly line workers being able to work in all areas of Kentucky and the types of jobs that will put food on the table, a roof over your head. To be able to have depopulating regions, rural Kentucky, that are depopulating in certain areas of Kentucky, whether it be the western Kentucky River counties or the coal fields of East Kentucky. Here in your community, you all have been able to see a growth in an industry that has been here for a long, long time. That industry has expanded to my district in Moorhead, Round County. Independent Stave, their new stave mill that's now 5, 6, 7 years old, 3 shifts of people they work there, just announced the other day that they're going to build a new cooperage barrel facility there, a $68 million investment, 225 jobs. Moorhead, Round County has always been known as a lumber, sawmill, timber community where people have brought their logs to be sold. Couldn't be in a better place at a better time with that kind of investment. So the distillery bourbon industry don't only affect Nelson County, this region, it is stretched out throughout Kentucky and bringing jobs, hope, and opportunity. Diversification of economies is critical. The growth you all have seen has been good for your community, and you can see that in this community when you come.
Sure, and of course, manufacturing is where you get the good jobs. And,
That's right.
You know, a service industry, you know, you don't want to have your economy based on service industry
That's right.
alone. But yeah, manufacturing jobs are really what made the middle class.
I don't think that you need to have your economy based on any one thing. It's got to be diversified.
Right.
I think that's the vision, and I think that's the plan, the initiative that I'm trying to bring as we get ready to take the office of governor after this election. I'm confident. I'm not overconfident. We're working hard. And we're going to try to make it happen on May the 21st and November the 6th.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Good.
We'll be back with our guest, Rocky Adkins, candidate for governor, after these messages. Stay tuned. You're listening. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford will be with you till the top of the hour with Bradford and Brooks, and we're continuing our series of interviews with candidates for state constitutional office from the governor's race all the way down. And we're joined in the studio by Rocky Adkins, who is a Democrat seeking the Democratic nomination for governor. And we've been discussing education and its importance. And the education is something you want to get right.
That's right.
You know,
better.
and I know that people who watch Frankfurt, a lot of us, it's like, well, what's going to change this General Assembly? What's going to change? But people may say, well, what are they going to do this time? Well, the goal is always improve,
right.
improve. So that's that lesson finally got through my head. That they're probably going to look at. You always want to look at what you can do better.
Yes.
In the General Assembly. In education, I think if you stand still in education, you're losing.
You are. If you don't have a world-class education system, then you're not going to be competitive in keeping the jobs you have or recruiting the industry and business you want for the future, and I think we all understand that. I'm a former school teacher, Jim, master's degree from Moorhead State. My dad was in the classroom for 39 years, 50 total in public education. My mother taught preschool for 23 years, so public education has been instilled in me, and it's made a difference in my life. School teachers, as I think about my teachers of the past, from kindergarten all the way through college, I can think of a teacher, and many of them, that changed my life in a very, very positive way and prepare me for life in a very, very positive way. And one of the reasons I got in this race, to be very honest with you, is what you've been watching go on over the last 3 years in Frankfort, Kentucky. I disagree with the agenda of this governor and his attempt to try to privatize public education. Right. The creation of charter schools and an already underfunded public education system to move the public education dollars out of the public classroom to a charter school that will be run by a private for-profit corporation, right, I think is wrong. the disrespect that's been shown to our public employees and our teachers, the education community all across Kentucky by this governor is disrespect that should not be accepted and will not be accepted. And I think that's going to be shown during this election cycle, that people, whether you're in the education field or whether you're not, the communities across Kentucky have respect for educators and people in the classroom. And what an awesome responsibility it is to be a teacher, to know you've got students in front of you, children and young men and women, and you're changing and helping mold their life and shaping their life for the future, preparing them for life. But this governor has called our teachers and our educators across Kentucky thugs and ignorant. He's disrespected them on every chance that he's had. He accused them when they marched on Frankfort because they were there. There was some child got molested or tried drugs for the first time. You know, it's good to see people being engaged in the process, but it's really sad to see teachers who believe they've got to be there to defend their profession, to be there to be engaged for public education, to be there because of attempts to try to destroy their public pension. The Kentucky teacher retirement system, which is a good system, it's been there since 1940 and it's been healthy and it's back on its way to recovery, and to try to take away a defined benefit. If we want to have quality teachers, the best and the brightest in the classroom, then we got to have a defined benefit pension system, and this governor has tried to change that. He's tried to privatize that. And I would just say that we have got to stand up for educators. We've got to stand up for teachers. We've got to stand up for the education community across Kentucky. And we've got to build back the confidence that a world-class public education system is critical. And those who have come to Frankfort, I want to thank you. The Capitol building in Frankfort, Kentucky, it doesn't belong to any individual. That Capitol building in Frankfort, Kentucky is the people's house. And to see that segment of the population, many for the first time, being engaged in the process, being a part of the debate, I think is important. And I think they've helped keep a lot of bad things from happening in Frankfort. And I hope their voice continues locally and in Frankfort as they stand up for public education all across the Commonwealth.
Well, I agree with you. One of the most shocking things that, to me, that happened was the summary dismissal of all of the State Board of Education members, and the governor taking away from, from the State Board of Education the appointment of a commissioner who was the result of a national search.
Yes.
I mean, the way, particularly since 1990, the way of choosing state board members and choosing a commissioner were all done to minimize partisan.
That's right.
Partisanship,
That's
political
right.
partisanship.
That's right.
And this governor has totally removed that, because
Yes.
he's handpicked all of the board members, and has picked a commissioner of his choice.
Yes. Well,
With no national search, no anything.
Well, that's very true. And again, I think we've got a commissioner of education that I watched sit at the table and testify in favor of charter schools. He stood on the House floor and helped Bam Carney basically answer questions by whispering in his ear. There's no question that he has an agenda when it comes to the Jefferson County public school system, trying to take it over. I think that's wrong. He is also, in my opinion, a commissioner that doesn't have a strong belief in public education. His agenda is more slanted toward charter schools. It's an agenda that really came out the other day wanting the records and information on teachers who came to Frankfort. It's just another poke. It's another disrespect toward our education community all across Kentucky. And I think it sends this tone, this message, though.
Well, it smacks of government overreach.
It smacks, but it also goes beyond the state lines of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And if you're a business or industry out there and you're looking at Kentucky and you're hearing all this, you're hearing all this feedback, you're hearing all this kind of people in uproar, and rightly so, that you kind of stand back and say, what's going on in Kentucky? Where's the leadership that's needed out of the governor's office? Where's the leadership that's needed out of a commissioner? Let me tell you, we need a commissioner that is there after a national search, and we need a commissioner that will stand up for the education community, and we need a commissioner that will stand up for public education in Kentucky.
Well, the governor's already said that he doesn't think much about public education.
Well-
The bill which would have allowed people to donate to private schools and take a tax credit, superintendents across the state told him that that would do irreparable harm to their school systems, and he said he really didn't care because he didn't think much of the public school system
Well,
anyway.
it's-
And that's the governor of our state saying that.
It's an agenda, and the agenda is very clear. It's not just talk, it's actions, and the actions have been very clear. 2 bills this past session. The bill you're talking about is House Bill 205, which we
Right.
give tax breaks to send your child to private school, and if you don't send your child to private school, that's fine. That's your business. But a tax break in that manner, in my opinion, takes more money out of the general fund, which we already have
Right.
financial issues in Kentucky, especially when it comes to public education. The other bill was House Bill 525, which basically would have given the governor more authority over who was appointed to the Kentucky Teacher Retirement
Yes.
System Board, a board that has worked very well and had a voice not only for public educators but for others, and again, a board that's been formed since, I think, 1940.
Right.
The pension system, and we'll speak specifically toward the teacher pension system. Teachers are in a unique situation because they do not pay in to Social Security. So the pension that they will eventually receive is it.
That's it.
And
That's right.
so, if anybody, if any listeners are, wondered why teachers are so protective of that really, that's part and parcel
Yes,
of why.
because they're locked
and
out of-
they've been promised.
That's
This
right.
has been a promise that's been made that they would have this retirement.
That's right.
But when looking at this issue from the outside, there's a tremendous pension obligation moving forward. And for proponents who want to say, well, let's convert the new hires to a 401k, that really doesn't address the pension issue that's still hanging out there.
Yes.
The unfunded, what needs to be funded, et cetera.
Yeah,
That doesn't really fix
in
that.
fact, it gives less money to the system to
Right.
support it.
That's
Right.
right. That's right.
Right. What would be your thoughts on solving the pension issue or shoring things up?
Well, Jim, I'm glad you asked that question because when I have a microphone, I like to talk about what we did with the reforms of 2013. But let me, first of all, before I explain that, tell you that you're exactly right. Teachers cannot draw Social Security, and that's the reason that the pension system they have that's back on recovery. It's back on the right path. It's back to 60% funded and continues to grow. But here's what I'd say. In 2013, Democrats controlled the House, Republicans controlled the Senate. We did major reforms in 13, and here's what I want to take you through. We had 2 crashes of the stock market, 02 and 08, 2002, 2008. We went through the greatest recession of our lifetime. So we started making reforms to the system in 08. Again, in 2010 was the teachers that basically kind of their promise to the system to help on the health care side of that, and they agreed to do that by paying in more. To a promise made is a promise that must be kept, and I agree with you. There's been a promise made. They paid their part, both public employees and teachers. We need to live up to our obligation. So in 13, coming out of that Great Recession, Democrats and Republicans in a bipartisan way with stakeholders at the table, we made major reforms that done 3 major things. You put a pension oversight board in place to watch the investments of the pension boards themselves. Number 2, it done a $3 million audit of both systems to give us an idea of what was going on within the system. And number 3, it said you got to put more money in this thing. When you come out of 2 crashes, a Great Recession, you got to put more money in this thing. Rather than the mandated amount that had to go in statutorily, which had already had been done up to that point.
Right.
So that was called full funding of the ARC. So we did that. We did it in the 14 budget. We did it again in the 16 budget. It was done again in this last budget. But I want to talk about what's happened since 13. Since we passed those reforms of 13, we've seen some very, very positive things happen. And one of the things that we have seen happen in the Kentucky retirement system itself, from their investments that they've made over the last 2 years and the return on those investments, they have earned over $2.4 billion. That is positive results from those reforms. Teacher retirement. Year before last, their investments and return on those investments grew by 15.5%. Last year alone, from their investments and return, they grew 18.4%. So the reforms of 13 are working. Now, if there's modifications needed as we move forward, then let's do it in a bipartisan way. Let's not go in a side room and pass a bill like Senate Bill 151. I stood up in that meeting room and I told the chairman, I said, Mr. Chairman, you cannot pass this bill out of this committee. You're breaking the law. It says you have to have an actuarial analysis. You don't have it. He tried to rule me out of order, and I said, no, sir, I'm not the one out of order. You're out of order. You're breaking the law. And I think the Supreme Court upheld what I said. They voted 7-0 that they acted improperly, that the process was violated, and that's exactly what happened. So what I would say to you is that the 2013 reforms are working. They were passed in a bipartisan way with stakeholders at the table. Numbers don't lie, Jim. Numbers don't lie. The earnings from investments are showing very positive results. Now, I would say to you, the funding stream as we move forward is we got to continue to fund the ARC till we see these systems recover. Teacher retirement is recovering. It's not in a crisis. Teacher retirement is not in a crisis. This governor would make you think different. Kentucky teacher retirement system's not in crisis. Kentucky retirement system is a little bit more critical, and we hope to see those earnings continue to grow as we go into the next year. We said it would take 20 years to fully recover. We didn't say it would happen overnight with the 13 reforms. I'm confident. Keep what we got. Keep funding the system as we move forward. If there's modifications made, let's do it in a bipartisan way, out in full transparency with stakeholders at the table. That's how the best reforms work.
All right. Well, very good.
Thank you.
I think one of the thing that stood out in what your discussion about that, stakeholders at the table.
Stakeholders at the table.
And
Everything that's been done in Frankfurt over the last 3 years have been done behind closed doors. They've been very partisan. Not one vote for Senate Bill 151, the sewer bill. Not one vote for the tax reform bill that passed last year that put taxes on new services, and including nonprofits, that we fixed in the legislation that was passed this time. But you cannot operate, in my opinion, in that partisan, behind the closed doors, no transparency. That's wrong, in my opinion. And when you operate that way, you don't gain any confidence from the public. And that's been shown over the last 2.5 years, especially when you've seen thousands of people march on Frankfurt because they don't trust the system anymore. They've not been at the table, and their voices have not been heard.
Right.
So I would tell you, I've seen a lot of reform measures passed in my time since I've been there. Good reform will not stand on its own without bipartisan support and without stakeholders at the table. As governor, I'll open the Capitol building back up. The committee rooms will be open for people to be there to voice their opinions. The gallery will be back open for people to be a part of the process. This is a transparent process. People need to know what's going on. That's the reason teachers are coming, is because they're going to be there and watch. And their voices are going to be heard along with public employees, along with working families that got locked out of the committee rooms 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
People come to Frankfurt because that is the people's house.
Right.
Let's open it up. Let's do things transparently. Let's get bipartisan support. And then let's make sure stakeholders are bought in if you want to have the confidence of the public across Kentucky.
Right. You touched on tax reform, and the Republican leadership seems to be moving the state towards the Tennessee model, or maybe Indiana, where with trying to reducing income taxes in Kentucky while raising or adding more services to the state sales tax, so that we get more consumption-based taxes rather than income tax. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, they took one step towards that last year. Is that the right direction for the state to go to ensure that everybody pays their fair share and that we have reasonable cash flow for the state government?
Tim, putting more load on working families' backs across Kentucky that are already struggling to put food on the table and a roof over their head is not the right approach, in my opinion. Giving more corporate tax breaks when you're adding a tax on 95% of working families, individuals across Kentucky, is a regressive tax, in my opinion. I think that we really need to look at tax reform of how we can have really a modernized tax system, but again, bipartisan support. Again, build confidence of the private sector along with the general public across Kentucky. We would hope that we could gain more revenue through building a stronger economy and creating good jobs and have more revenue coming into the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Another place I think we really ought to look, Jim, is in Kentucky with tax breaks and tax loopholes each year total up to a little over $13 billion. Now listen to me, our entire general fund budget is $11 billion. So tax loopholes and tax breaks equal more than $2 billion more here in Kentucky. What if we could look at those loopholes, not hurt business and industry in any way, not hurt individuals, but what maybe is outdated? What's not working anymore? What do we really need to take out of that $13 billion? What if we can only find 10%? That'd be over $1 billion at the snap of a finger. Now that's easier said than done, and I understand that. But that's just one example that I believe that we could start looking at to have an opportunity. Tax modernization has been studied, it's been looked at. We got a lot of things, a lot of information on the shelf down there. I would tell you that the experts, I would tell you that bipartisan support, I would tell you efforts like we've done on higher ed reform and others with the private sector, different parts of our communities being involved, is the direction that we need to go when it comes to a fair, modernized tax system which will make Kentucky more competitive than any other state throughout America with whatever reforms we would pass. Don't go behind a closed door and bring 17 sales tax items that you're going to tax that have never been. Don't do that. That's not the right approach. It really doesn't accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. It's very selective.
And
again,
it really came on really the common everyday person.
That's
more
what I'm
than,
saying. It raised taxes on 95% of Kentuckians and gave a tax break to the top 5% along with corporations. Now look, you know, I'm a very moderate, middle of the road, common sense kind of Democrat. You know, I'm a Kentucky Democrat. I'm a left-hand fork, a middle fork Democrat. And what that means is that, you know, I'm a very moderate, I'm a common sense kind of guy. And, you know, I believe that without question, the private sector of my life has been important to me. The public sector of my life has been important to me about how you make government work for the private sector in a way that Kentucky will be competitive in the future. And what that means is I understand what it is to meet payroll on Friday. I've been there in the trenches. I understand it. I'm just an everyday Kentuckian like most people across Kentucky. I got up this morning, I put my pants on just like everybody else did. So I think that's what Kentucky wants. They want a governor they can talk to, a governor they can connect with, a governor that has the experience and proven leadership to make state government work again for the people across this Commonwealth. And I think that people want a governor that will unite people instead of divide people, a governor that can work across party aisles. That's what I bring to the table.
One quick question before we take a break. Economic incentives, the state offers them, and Nelson County's been blessed
Yes.
by having those approved to help some of our industry to locate here and expand. There's a lot of critics out there of providing these incentives, though, and sometimes, you know, you want to look at them like, are we getting the return back? What would be your thoughts of any changes to, you know, you're kind of in a catch-22. You want to attract business and industry, but you don't want to give away the farm in the process.
Right. And I think you have to be very responsible anytime that incentives are put in place. Paul Patton's administration, when he was governor, created many of the incentives that we're using today. And, Jim, I would tell you that we got to have incentives in Kentucky if we're going to compete with other states, because all the rest of the states have them as well. And, you know, business and industry is going to locate where they believe not only they're getting the best deal, they got the best workforce, but incentives do have something to do with that for us to be able to compete. There's nothing wrong with us looking at those incentives and seeing which ones are working. Are we getting our bang for the buck? I would stress to an economic development cabinet that I would have, along with the secretary, that we look at the wages that are going to be paid. Is that investment that we're making going to be with good wages and good jobs that will drive an economy? I think that's essential. And if you can show that to the general public, then most critics would say, you know, That's a good deal for us. That's a good deal for the taxpayers of Kentucky. That incentive we're given to bring those industries and businesses and jobs here are paying the kind of wages that will help us drive an economy. I'll just give you an example. I was the prime sponsor of one of those. In 1996, I was the sponsor, the prime sponsor of the Kentucky Tourism Development Act. And the reason I mention that is because it has created almost $3 billion of private sector investment since that bill has been passed in tourism destinations. Now, what does that mean? I'll give you an example. The aquarium in Newport, Newport on the Levee, the Kentucky Speedway, 4th Street Live, and I'm going to mention one to you that I think folks in this community will recognize very well, the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. The distillery industry has basically taken advantage of this in a very positive way. When I say taken advantage, in a very positive way to bring jobs, to build visitor centers along the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. That has brought thousands of people to Kentucky. They spend their money while they're here. They eat in our restaurants. They stay in our hotels. So that is one of those incentives that I think has worked, and it's been very positive for Kentucky. And I only mentioned a few of those investments that I think have been a good return for people's investment, their tax dollars here in Kentucky.
All right, we need to take a quick commercial break. We'll wrap up the show with our special guest, Rocky Adkins, candidate for governor. Stay tuned. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks here with my co-host, Margie Bradford. We've got about 4 minutes left in today's show. So I skipped the opening bumper music so that we could give that time to our special studio guest, Rocky Adkins, who is Minority Floor Leader and a candidate for the Democratic nomination for governor. Rocky, we appreciate the time you've spent with us today, and
Yes, sir.
and I've always enjoyed conversations.
Yes, sir.
With you and learning, and it's been very insightful conversation about your thoughts on state
sir.
government and serving as governor.
And we're really excited you're going to keep on being here for a while, and
That's right.
even there's a special event they're having.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm honored to be here in Nelson County, Bardstown again today. I've been here many times,
right.
and it's always enjoyable to come back. And a little update on the governor's race. I think it's going very, very well. We're gaining support, momentum every day. Calls all across Kentucky that are really coming on board. They want a common sense kind of guy in the governor's office, somebody they can connect with, somebody they can talk to. So we're traveling Kentucky from one end of it to the other so people can get to know me even better. I've met you folks, but a lot of people have not met me. So I'm here in this community today. I'm going to be here all day, going to have lunch at the Rotary Club here in a little bit, and we're going to be around for the rest of the afternoon meeting with folks. But tonight we're having a reception and fundraiser, meet and greet, all of those things together tonight at Mammy's Kitchen and Bar. I think everybody in this community probably knows where that's at, 116 West Stephen Foster Avenue here in Bardstown. And we'll be there from 5:30 to 7:30 tonight. And I'd like to invite the public to come. If you've not met me yet, I wish you'd come and shake my hand and we'll have a conversation. I'm not going to be in any hurry. I have really told my scheduler, don't have me go in the community and go to a place and have to run out and leave. So I'm not built that way. I'm going to be there for a while tonight, and I look forward to the conversation tonight. And we'll have a good time there, and we'll have some hors d'oeuvres, and we'll have people in. And it's a beautiful day. It'll be a beautiful evening, supposed to be 65 degrees. And so I look forward to meeting the folks in Nelson County that I hadn't met, the folks that I have. We're excited about our race. We're in it to win it. I'm going to leave it all on the court as an old point guard. I'm going to give it all I've got to win this race. We'd like for folks to join our campaign. Our campaign's going really well. We've got an organization that we announced the other day in all 120 counties.
Very good.
And we're excited about that. That is a big deal for us. Fundraising, money is going very well. I wish I didn't even have to talk about that subject, but if you can't compete financially, you just can't compete in the political arena anymore. And our fundraising is going very, very well, and we're going to run a very competitive campaign, and we're going to talk about issues like we talked about here today, and I look forward to that.
Rocky, do you have a website?
Yes,
up and
it's,
running?
the website is rocky4ky.com. So it's Rocky, R-O-C-K-Y, 4, F-O-R, KY.com. Go on there. You'll learn about our campaign. My running mate, Stephanie Horn from Louisville, Kentucky, former school board member on the Jefferson County school system. She's an attorney, owns her own title company. Her husband is a retired veteran, Marine, 27 years, 2 tours of duty in the Middle East. He's an attorney as well. She is passionate about public education. She's passionate about health care. She's a cancer survivor like me, and she's passionate about veterans and veterans being treated with dignity and respect, and that's what we bring to this race. It's time to bring common sense back to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and it's time to bring dignity and respect back to the governor's office, and I would close with this. You're talking and listening to the candidate who can beat Matt Bevin in November. I'm the candidate that can beat Matt Bevin. I can bring back the rural areas of Kentucky who we've been losing in November. Moderate Republicans are responding well to this campaign. Rocky Adkins is the candidate that can beat Matt Bevin in November.
W246
All right,
AT
thank you, Rocky. That's going to wrap
1320
it up
AM
for
and
Bradford and Brooks.
97.1
Everybody have a
FM,
great
your
week.
#1 radio station.